super tiny, super affordable, super bizarre. This EV is proving somewhat of a mystery, which we're going to attempt to solve. This, as you can see, isn't MyAmi. That is MyAmi, and this is the Fully Charged Show.
If you like the Fully Charged Show, then you'll love our live events.
Next up, we're in Amsterdam for Fully Charged Live Europe on the 24th, 25th and 26th of November.
Get your tickets today.
So first things first, what are the big differences between this and the Citroen Ami that we've seen on the channel before, the city version of the Citroen Ami? Well, first and foremost, they got rid of the doors. Literally taken them out and replaced them with these rather funny metal ones instead, which is sort of reminiscent of what you might have on a roller coaster. It comes in one colour, khaki, with these like little yellow accents just to remind you that yes, it is an adventure vehicle. But adventure by looks, not necessarily by functionality, and we will come on to that a little bit later. So you've got these funny little arrows here just to remind you that these are in fact the wheels. You've got these funny little ones at the front, which they're not lights, they're just stickers. Just little stickers to remind you this is the buggy version. We've also got a spoiler, which really again serves no purpose whatsoever. I think it has the effect of making this look like it's got a hat on backwards, a cap on backwards. Again, sort of, you know, making sure that we really understand this is the buggy version and not the city version. This is the City Ami on holiday, perhaps. We've got these amazing gold wheels, give it a little bit of glam, which actually I think go really, really well with that khaki colour. Now, as with the original Citroen Ami, the front is exactly the same as the back, with the exception, of course, of the lights. So obviously at the front, you've got your front lights, and at the rear, you've got your rear lights. Apart from that, it is exactly the same at the front as it is at the back. And that's, of course, extremely strategic, because from Citroen's perspective, that's how they can reduce their costs and make sure the cost of this can stay low as well, because you're only making one part that's exactly the same. Now again, this really, really is not that different from the original Citroen Ami, meaning that the charging is in a similar location. So it's found just in this little... Ooh! Now that is a bit of a design flaw. You do in fact need to open the door in order to access the charge port. But I'm guessing... Oh, but once it's open you can do that. Well, that's a little bit annoying. Anyway, here you've got your Type 2 connector. And here, you've got your sort of Premier Inn hairdryer cable that you can use and plug in. That is obviously a European plug. Plug into your Type 2 adapter. Plug in, there you go. Simple. Although I will say, I wonder if this is sort of has that Hoover effect that you can kind of put it back in where you sort of pull it and then it goes back in. I don't think we've got that luxury. So actually I do regret getting that out, because I'm gonna have to do some cable Mary Kondoing. Oh no. Yeah, oh, why did I do that? We should have practiced that before. Damn it! Is this a mystery about this vehicle? Because after all, the Citroen Ami has sold 25,000 units across the world, and clearly, oh, just been overtaken, unsurprising given the top speed of 28 miles an hour. The Citroen Ami has sold in 25,000 units. It's a car that totally we can get our heads around. It totally makes sense. You know, you're not going to be going above those speeds within a city. It's small, it's diddly, it's affordable, it makes sense. The buggy version is more confusing, because whilst it looks like a buggy, it really doesn't have any kind of the utility or function that a buggy has. I mean, this is very, very much an on-road vehicle. So who is it for? I think this is a curious thing, because technically this is a quadricycle which sits in the L7E category, and that is a really interesting category of vehicle which doesn't require you to have a full driver's license. So in France that means that you can drive them from the age of 14, which, can you imagine being 14 and then just getting that sense of freedom of being able to get yourself places, and thinking about the freedom that gives your parents of not having to drive you to various house parties or whatever, or to various activities. In the UK though, it is slightly different. We don't really have the L7E category. We're not really as familiar with it, or certainly don't have a massive market for it. And yet this vehicle you could drive with a CVT license from the age of 16. And again, imagine that sense of freedom, that you could drive your friends to the beach and your parents would have that assurance that you're not going to be doing it willy-nilly or driving like a maniac because it's 28 miles an hour and you can only get one passenger in. You literally can't show off. You'd look completely daft doing so. Or perhaps actually they're just collectors' cars, fanatics' cars. And that's already been proven by the fact that yes, you can buy one of these if you're lucky enough and quick enough to get them and to order them. On the first time round, you can get them for £10,500. On Auto Trader, they're selling at £14,000. It's kind of nuts. People love them. What is difficult to gauge is that when people overtake, how angrily are they overtaking? Because next to this 40 miles an hour seems angry, not least because you can really hear it. But I'm hoping that they're passing thinking, oh, what a cute little car. Carry on at your very modest 28 miles an hour. So moving to the interior, after a little cable debacle just there, it's so simple, and obviously it is, because aside from anything, if you haven't got doors and you park somewhere, you don't want to have loads of stuff that someone could just sort of take out. So actually, you know, that simplicity I think is also good for security. But a couple of things to point out. Number one, this rather nifty bum bag. Who'd have thought? Oh, very fashionable. You can pop all your bits and bobs in there. You could probably fit a phone, your keys, that kind of thing. Which actually, having driven here, is really handy because obviously you've got wind and you've got things sort of moving around. So useful to have this little bum bag. Obviously continuing the yellow accent features in here, including these trays, which actually you can scoop out. I imagine you can put them in the dishwasher, so that's good. Cup holder, extremely important, obviously. And it does come with this custom Bluetooth speaker. So no kind of tech, no kind of radio, no kind of, you know, integrated speaker, but a portable one, which I think is more than enough. They say that your tech becomes the tech of the vehicle. And what that really means is that you've got a good phone holder so that you can use that as your sat nav. Buttons, it's so simple. Reverse neutral drive, that's all there is. Hazard lights and a little USB port as well, and that's really all that we've got. But what is quite remarkable, because you know, you don't have a frunk, you don't have a boot, where do you put your things and how does this actually add any kind of practical value to your life? And this is where it's sort of most surprising, because I've got the seat all the way back here. You can see I've got an absolute ton of leg room. I think someone like Jack would have, it'd be a little bit more of a squeeze, but I think he'd be pretty much fine. Not least you've got things like a space for a suitcase, so let's imagine you had the luxury of having this in, say, the south of France. You could pick someone up from the airport, pop their bag in there, they would have plenty of room and can enjoy the sunshine as they travel back to their Airbnb or whatever it might be. Or equally, you could pop down to the boulangerie or you know, Tesco's if you're in the UK, pop your shopping on here, you've got a place to hang it, and you're still not really encroaching on any sort of leg room for your passenger. So really surprising actually how much stuff you could really fit in here. And we've even got some very handy umbrellas which the Citroen team have kindly lent to us, so space behind the seat as well. However, I did notice driving here that there aren't many things to sort of strap things down. So I've got this useful spec sheet, which again the lovely Citroen team gave to me, and I did have to sit on that. So it'd be good to have some sort of, you know, handy pocket for bits of paper, perhaps. There is a sunroof. That's a key difference between the Citroen Ami that you expect to see in cities and the Buggy version. And that's really cool. So I think we need to give that a go. So an interesting thing about the doors. Now, I did say that there weren't really any differences between the Citroen Ami and this version, and that's a little bit of a lie, because your buttons for reverse neutral and drive have been moved up here from down here. And the rationale for that is that if they were left down here, they'd get wet. And they'd get wet because there's no door. But there is, for the beady-eyed amongst you, these plastic coverings. But bizarrely, they only go here. So you're going to have to subscribe to maybe having a dry face but wet ankles, which interesting choice, maybe fine. If you wear wellies, you'll be totally fine. But that is sort of slightly interesting. But I think they do have the effect of making you feel like you're sort of cocooned in a little tent, which is quite romantic, I think. We've established that this is a buggy, but it is very much an on-road one and lacks any kind of real true functionality. It just about coped with the shingles without too much drama, but really we shouldn't have been doing that. And I find that so curious, and I feel like I sound like I'm being really mean, and I don't mean to be at all, because I've got a big smile on my face. I'm having a glorious time. I suppose I'm just kind of baffled, because it's sort of like going to a fancy dress party dressed as Indiana Jones. You look the part, you have the bits and bobs, but actually you don't have any of the capability. But you look the part, like a Pixar version of Fast and Furious, although we'd have to call it moderate and mild mannered. And again, even then I think I'm completely overthinking it, and should just boil this down to the fact that it's a toy. It's a toy and it's fun, but that toy happens to do something practical. In which case, if it is just a toy, that's fine. That's all it needs to be. And I love the fact that Citroen have just given it a go and seen, are people interested? Well, yes, it turns out they are extremely interested. And now one of the things that I think is just so fascinating and a real testament to how much things are changing in reasonably short periods of time is that Robert did a review of the Ami about 2 years ago, and he was kind of baffled by it. He said that it was like driving an egg box, and to be fair, that's kind of an accurate description, but since that time we've got way more comfortable with the idea of teeny tiny electric vehicles and alternative electric vehicles. You know, we've now got things like the Carver, the Moke, the Microlino, etc., and we're kind of au fait with the concept. And so I'd be so intrigued to see what he thinks now, but it's so well worth looking at that video, A, because it's obviously deeply charming, and B, because it really does show how much the mobility landscape, the electric vehicle landscape, has changed in a reasonably short amount of time.
Please support our Stop Burning Stuff Patreon and help us to tackle misinformation about electric vehicles and clean energy.